Hello guys, welcome to my new video, and today we'll be talking about the Mechagon Hard Mode, and I will be talking about how to activate them, how to do the hard modes, whether it's worth it, what kind of loot you get, what kind of mounts you can get. And there's a lot of misconceptions about Mechagon Hard Mode in particular, because a lot of people think that it's different difficulty. How do I queue for it? What do I have to do? And basically, it's just the Mythic Zero or the Mythic version of Mechagon, and in order to activate the hard modes, it's very similar to Old War back in the day. You have to do specific different things in order to activate the harder version of bosses. And there are a couple of hard modes throughout the dungeon that you need to activate in order to get the hard mode King Mechagon fight. So if you don't activate all the hard modes, you don't get the last boss in the hard mode, and you cannot beat the boss, or at least you won't be able to get the loot. So you need to do all the hard modes throughout the dungeon, and not every boss has a hard mode. There are certain bosses that you just kill normally, and then there's other bosses that you need to do specific things in order to activate the harder versions of them. So is it worth doing it? At this point in time, it is relatively difficult because people are still figuring out mechanics. It can take a couple of hours to really clear the whole dungeon. The rewards are worth it in my opinion, because one person in the party will get a 430 Azeroth helmet, which can be very good for them depending on which class and spec they're playing. And one person in the group is also going to get a mount, and this mount in my opinion is pretty good looking, especially if you're a gnome. If you're playing a gnome, this probably is a must-have, and leave a comment below if you're playing a gnome. I'm going to do a survey to see how many gnome players there are in World of Warcraft. But the mount is pretty badass. You can look at the Azeroth helm. It is very random, like it's possible that one person might get both of these and they'd be extremely lucky. And you can only do it once per week. So if you are locked out, or at least if you're watching this video and you're wondering, I've already done Mechagon, I didn't activate any of the hard modes, but I kind of want to get the mount. Can I do it this week? Activate hard modes and get loot? No. If you're locked out already, you cannot, or at least you can attempt a dungeon during the hard mode or with the hard mode mechanics, but you will not get any loot. So there's absolutely no point of doing it unless you want some practice. So basically next week when the reset happens, try to find yourself a group. You will need voice comp application, maybe Discord, maybe in-game voice that Blizzard provides, because the last boss requires a lot of communication. It's very similar to Megatork in BOD. Everyone needs to be able to talk. It's very important, until maybe there's going to be a weak aura that handles everything. But either way, let's go and have a look at activating these hard modes. So first of all, in the open area of Mechagon, there's going to be 3 bosses that will require a certain kind of order. You will see when you open your map an aerial oppression unit kind of hovering over certain bosses. In our case, it was hovering over Gunker. What that means is that you have to kill Gunker with aerial oppression unit over it. What aerial oppression unit is going to do is going to spawn 3 robots, and these robots are going to follow members of the party, and it's going to be really annoying. But a resto druid, or a druid in general who specs into mass roots, also has an additional route with entangling roots, can actually handle all of these robots. You can see me as a resto druid throughout the whole dungeon kind of trying to use my mass roots to get as many robots rooted together, and then using my entangling roots on robots that are kind of separated. So this completely negates the whole mechanic and makes resto druids again overpowered in 5-man dungeons, or at least in Mechagon. So you kind of do this with the first 3 bosses. You see aerial oppression unit hovering over Gunker, you kill Gunker. In our case, it moved over to the second boss, Trixie, and then we killed Trixie with the oppression unit over it, with 3 robots spawning all the time. I was mass rooting, I was entangling rooting. It was pretty easy. And then it moved over to King Gobblemak, and we did the same kind of thing. Just a quick note, if you want to kind of increase the speed of your run and you don't want to deal with the robots during trash packs, because those robots get spawned during trash pack, it is safe to assume that you can just clear all the trash leading to bosses and then attempt bosses after this, which means that you won't have to kill all the trash with the 3 robots present all the time. Just a quick little tip if you do want to increase the speed. Now, if you did the order correctly, instead of the 4th boss being aerial oppression unit, you will get a new boss called Tank Buster MK2. And again, this shows that you did the hard mode properly. there's going to be a kind of like orange swirly on a person that needs to be, or at least there's going to be damage on that person and needs to be soaked, so you stack for it. And then there's going to be 3 robots that are spawning throughout the fight, and they're going to be linked with kind of electricity line. And this electricity line can actually kill you if you don't pay attention to it. Like for example, if it spawns and you're just standing still, a couple of ticks will kill you. So what you have to do is you have to be aware of when these robots spawn, maybe spread out. When they spawn, I was kind of trying to root some of the robots, but honestly, it is absolutely fine to take 1 or 2 ticks and walk through the line itself, because it doesn't deal that much of damage. Just make sure not to completely AFK in the line. There can be certain bad overlaps where you have the soaking mechanic and the lines with the robots, and you kind of have to really work as a team. There is certain elements of RNG in this, but overall it's not too hard. Just a couple of maybe tries and you'll get this down, don't worry about it. So after you kill this, the next boss is actually the boss with the tanks, and it does not have a hard mode, so you're fine. You can kill this boss like usual, don't worry about it. You don't have to activate anything special. Once you go down the hole into this, you know, kind of metallic area, you'll see Cujo, and Cujo is a hard mode boss. I need to do a specific thing to activate a hard mode. Right in the boss room on the very left, there will be dog poop, and you kind of have to click on the dog poop, and the dog poop gets flinged into the fire, and that means the hard mode is activated. Now you'll notice that the hard mode is going to be activated because once you start the encounter, you'll get this stacking debuff that reduces your movement speed. And if you know the normal mechanics, movement speed is very, very important in this boss, because the boss will spawn these boxes where you need to hide behind the boxes when the boss is going to be doing AoE. And then right after AoE, it's going to select certain members that are going to be charged. And if the members are close to the boxes will get destroyed. And then you won't have a hiding area for the next AoE. And with the stacking movement debuff, this makes it extremely, extremely hard. Quick note, if you're a shaman, Ghost Wolf gets rid of the stacking movement, so you can just go into Ghost Wolf and run all you want, which is extremely, extremely good. And the second thing is that it's perfectly fine if you kind of mess up and sometimes the boxes get destroyed. If you have a personal cooldown, you should survive. I end up using Tranquility and a couple of cooldowns, and we did go through it, but you basically need to keep moving and stay close to the boxes at most times. And when you get the charge, you need to really, really run in order to prevent the boxes from getting destroyed. So overall, it's not a terribly difficult fight. You just need to be aware of your position. So after you kill Cujo, you have only 1 more hard mode to go. So you basically can kill all the other bosses to the last boss, and that is hard mode King Mechagon. And this is by far the most difficult hard mode in here, because it has a gimmicky mechanic. A lot of people like it, a lot of people don't like it. It's very similar to what Megatorque was in BOD. You need to have some kind of a voice communication. And what's going to happen, basically every 45 seconds, there's going to be like these 4 panels. You can see them here. They're going to light up, and they're going to have a specific sequence. And you need to pay attention what this sequence is. Like for example, let's say blue is going to be the first icon shown, then it's going to be purple or whatever. The way that we handled it was probably not the most optimal way of doing it. There are probably 100 different ways of optimizing this, but the way that we handled it is that one person paid attention to the order. So for example, blue first, purple second, and then the 4 other people would go and activate them. The way that the activation works is that, like I mentioned, you get the sequence order first. So you get to see which color is first, which color is second, which color is third, and which color is fourth. And then about a few seconds later, you're able to activate it. You only really have 5 seconds to activate the colors in the right order. So everyone needs to be close to the panels, and they need to shout out basically, I did the first, I did the second, or I did blue, I did purple, whatever way you want to handle this. You need to call out when they did it so the next person can press their panel at the right time. It is a very short time. I cannot stress this enough. You can really, if you delay this a couple of seconds, you will fail this. Like I mentioned, we kind of had one person that had an overview of everything and what was going on, and they called out who should get it, and then the person who's clicking the panel called out when they click the panel, and that seemed to work fine.
Red, purple, green, blue.
Red.
Green.
Input accepted. Countdown terminated.
We're the best.
around.
It's kind of on a 45-second delay, so it happens a lot throughout the fight. We had 2 of these happening in phase 1. Just a quick tip, for the first occurrence of this order, a lot of people tend to have 3 DPS and 1 tank clicking the buttons because there's a lot of healing happening. In our case, I actually clicked the buttons. My Tranquility was really healing a lot, so it kind of carried through it. Just keep in mind, if your healer is not able to heal throughout this phase and actually click the button, you might want to have a tank or assign a tank to do the first order. And then we got around 2 of these sequences in phase 1. When phase 2 happened, I think we had 3. And you have to keep in mind, when phase 2 happens, there's going to be an order happening like really quickly. So you have to pay attention to what's going on. We also actually added marks to the different locations because it's not always the same color that pops out in the same location as well. So this is the way that we handle it. I would love to hear how other people handle this. Maybe there's an optimal way of doing it. I'm not sure if there's going to be a weak order for this, but it took us a couple of tries to get this down, and we got the loot. I didn't get the mount. I didn't get the 430 helmet either, but another person did get it. So I wish you all the luck. The last boss is by far the hardest. Keep in mind that there is also a rank 4 essence, Vision of Perfection, tied to doing this dungeon without having any deaths. So maybe in a couple of months there'll be groups going or attempting this kind of achievement without having any deaths whatsoever and getting the cosmetic rank 4 of Vision of Perfection. Again, this boss is going to pose the most trouble in my opinion. Thank you for watching this guide. Let me know if you enjoyed this video. If you like the content, please do subscribe. Have a good day, guys, and I'll see you in my next video.